screens pop in.
Hey everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome.
I just posted a question in the chat. Feel free to text back in the Zoom chat where you are tuning in from.
Tuning. That's such an old word, Jason. I love it. It's like very radio. Tuning
I see
in.
Seattle,
San Jose, Mill
California,
Valley,
Germany,
Berlin, Willkommen.
all over. A
I
lot of
love
West
it.
Coast, Oregon, New York, Austin, Texas.
Sammamish. Just up the street, practically. We have someone named Volker. I worked with a Volker when I worked in Germany for a while, long ago. Great name. Turkey. Turkey spelled the new way, the new legal way. I love it. We Westerners have just been educated that we must now spell Turkey the way you've spelled it.
Just in time for Thanksgiving, yeah.
Right. Well,
good.
So it's actually that's part of the reason for the name change is Turkey didn't like being associated with the bird and the image, the other derogatory uses of the word about the bird. So anyway.
I always learn an interesting story when I'm on a call with Ethan. It's a fun fact.
Yeah, so well, for those who don't know, and our guest from Turkey, Ahmet, I've been to Istanbul twice, to other parts of Turkey as well, but I just came back from Istanbul at the end of September. So I was just there. And
all right, we still have a big outpouring of people coming in, so I'm going to give it one more minute and then we'll get started.
Yeah, we normally start on time, but with so many people registered, we want to make sure that we give a couple minutes for people to show up. So what we're going to do today, you all get an early preview. I have a set of slides. I'm going to cover briefly some specifics about how to get scope during flat growth or no growth times. And then we're going to do Q&A. And so we'll make this crisp, focused, valuable. I just realized, Jason, we're so used to having my bio in slide decks, it's not in there. So once we're ready to go, I actually should probably give my bio. We cut it out for space. I didn't even think about it. So a lot of people obviously know my background, but I'll run over it quickly. So many of you just arrived, missed the welcome question in chat, which is we're asking just where are you that you're watching this from? So just for fun, you can just put in your city or country if you want, because it's just fun to see. So New York City, a lot of Seattle, Amsterdam. I love all the global attendees, and I'm Paris, Lux, very good, Luxembourg, London, Evergreen, Colorado, but Ohio this week. Amsterdam again. It's neat to see all the people coming in from around the globe. I recognize it's too late in the day to get our audience from India. Austin folks, grab some coffee. I like it. Somebody networking already. That's a good idea, by the way. Sunny Madrid. Very nice. All right, Jason. Well, you and I don't believe in making people wait around.
Yep.
And so you were, I think, did you have any more intro to add, or should I share screen and we get moving?
I'm going to cover three quick things. First, everyone, my name is Jason. I'm Ethan's operating partner. So 3 things to help this event run smoothly. Number 1, please mute yourself if you're not already muted. Number 2, if convenient for you, feel free to turn on your camera, especially during the live Q&A session. And then the third piece, if you want to ask a question, use the Q&A feature in Zoom. It's in the bottom bar. It looks like a couple of speech bubbles. I will monitor the questions, and then we'll look at the most upvoted ones at the end during Q&A. All right, that's it.
Which also means please vote on questions, because there's too many of you. I'll only get to 3, 4, 5, 6 questions depending on how time goes. So the best way to get your question answered is to find somebody else who's asked to either ask something that other people vote for you, or go find something that you want me to answer and vote for them. Malaga, Spain. Very nice. And then I see someone doing yoga. It's great. We have someone like getting their stretch on. Okay, I'm going to jump in and I'll stop looking at cameras. We're going to share that. So you're going to get like share within share real quick. Okay. So what are we going to talk about? First, I'm Ethan Evans. You all already know that, but my background real quick is I was an engineer, educated as an engineer by trade. I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, then to Purdue University for a master's. I was in a robotics PhD program and found that a PhD wasn't for me, and I went into industry. I spent 12 years in startups, followed by 15 years at Amazon. So I joined Amazon as a senior manager in 2005, and I made my way to vice president over the next, 8 years to vice president with director in the middle. And then I spent 7 more years as a vice president. I was the first engineering manager on Prime Video. I had a team of 6. Prime Video was started with a team of 6. And now is several thousand that do Prime Video. I started the Amazon App Store with a team of about a dozen, grew it to about 800. And then I finished up my career building the gaming pillar of Prime. We were talking just as things started. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the churn at OpenAI. The new interim CEO, Emmett Shear, was the CEO of an Amazon acquisition, Twitch, and I actually worked with him for about 5 years. And so I'm super excited to see what happens with OpenAI now under Emmett's leadership. In the meantime, today I want to talk about how you get scope in a flat growth time, because presumably most of you who are watching are leaders and you're interested because you'd like to grow your career, but it's tough times where particularly the big tech companies are still laying off or not growing. They're top heavy. They have too many leaders and not enough growth to support the growth of those leaders. So what do you do? And there are a number, I want to first share some good news. I coach privately about 50 people. And I talk to those people. And to be clear, a couple of them have been laid off, right? Like hard times, hard things have happened. But more and more from the people I talk to in detail, I'm seeing them get new scope, and we're going to talk exactly about how they're doing it because it is the same pattern. So that's enough about my background. Let's jump in. I have to get focus on the right window so I can advance a slide here. Come on. There we go. And now it goes 2 slides. Okay, so first, straight up truth. There are no guarantees that you can ever get scope. And particularly, there's no 100% certain way anyone can tell you to gain scope during downtime. There's going to be some luck involved, but there are a set of key actions you can take that dramatically increase your chances. And it's what the people that I'm coaching, and by the way, at every level, I often speak in Amazon levels, but I will translate. I know some of you, there's a lot of Seattle people, so probably some of you know Amazon. Amazon's L6 level is managerial. It's the first level manager. I coach a manager at that level who's getting new people. The senior manager level, same thing. I coach someone who just was just part of a reorg, got new people. I coach someone at the director level, an L8. We just talking to that person, again, getting offered a new opportunity. How are they doing that, given that all of you, whether you're at Amazon or not, know the news that Amazon, it's been in the news just this week for more layoffs. So how are these people who work there getting more scope while the company is clearly still shrinking? All right. Let's just talk about how you get scope in general. How does this happen for you anywhere? Good times, bad times, et cetera. Well, the most normal way is actually your team or your organization grows. The challenge you're working on is making more money, is reaching more customers, is got a bigger technical footprint. And because it's got more to do, you're being given new headcount. This is the normal leadership growth path. That's not happening in 23, 24. It's not It might be a little bit, but most teams are being held flat or asked to do more with less and to be efficient. That's the request. So this normal path is closed. And by the way, if you listen to me, when I was giving my bio, part of the way I grew was like I started the Amazon App Store with a team of 15 or so. And because of demand, because of circumstances, because the app-based world blew up and because Amazon started shipping Kindle tablets, that team grew to 800. And that was just all me riding an elevator. It's a great way to grow, but it's not the only way. So what is working right now? This bottom left box is what's working for everyone. Different flavors of reorgs. A peer leaves, your manager leaves, someone else leaves, or they're fired, or they're laid off, right? Something causes a change near you that leaves other people in other organizations unled or underled. And when that happens, what companies are doing right now is they're not backfilling those leadership roles. Two reasons. Number one, they don't want to hire more leaders. They feel top heavy. I've heard this explicitly from people I coach at Google. They don't want to hire externally. They want to promote internally. Second, managers at higher levels are looking and saying, I have another leader I coach. She lost someone. And she said, look, I'm not going to backfill that person. I'm going to cut up his team into pieces and hand it out to others. So I'm going to take this organization. One of my leaders took a new job. I'm going to cut up the organization and hand it out to feed all my other growing leaders. So you want to make sure that you're in line when these things happen. And how do you do that? Well, the next couple slides are on that, but the short summary is you need to be trusted by your manager, viewed as capable, viewed as reliable, and you need to be trusted by your skip level because the skip level is going to be involved in this. So we'll talk about how you do that. Now, there are three other ways on the right to get scope, and we will talk about those as well. Running them down briefly, you can volunteer for unstaffed work. This has trade-offs. By the way, some of these same things, if there are ICs listening, wondering if I'll address you, I'm primarily speaking to managers, but the same recipe works for individual contributors. You go find something that's not being done that you can pick up and contribute to and make it your own. And then when growth returns, you're positioned to own that new thing. Or you can come up with something that's compelling to start, even though it's hard times. Companies are still starting new initiatives, even if they're not growing, they're existing. Now, again, the bar is higher and it's harder. I'll tell some stories about that at the end before we go into Q&A. Finally, key tip, look around. Who else is getting scope in your organization and what are they doing? Who else is getting additional opportunity and why? So I said you have to be trusted. Trust is really consistency over time. That's a working definition of trust. If you think about how you define the word trust, we all know what it means to trust someone, but it's actually a little bit hard to say, why do we trust them? What does trust mean? In a working sense, trust is consistency over time. It's believing that you're going to do what you say, that I can rely on you to follow through. Well, key point here, it's not just doing what you say, it's also saying what you're going to do. And this is where a lot of you may fall down. I don't have time to go super deep into it, but there's a flaw I see managers fall into, and I talk about this in my larger Path to Executive class all the time. There's a flaw I see people fall into, and that flaw is working hard and hoping to be noticed. And there's some of you out there listening, I know, that you're working hard and you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have to like brag about my work or publicize my work. I'm doing good work and it's up to other people to notice it. And I feel a little dirty if I talk about my own work. Well, work hard and hope to be noticed is not a sufficient plan. Now, you don't have to be always chirping about what you do. Just make sure that you are public about what you're committing to. Then you do it. And then when you're done, you say, look, it's done. And you take credit, appropriate credit for it. You announce it. You don't have to be over the top, but you do have to do a little bit of work to let your skip know, and high-level peers of your manager and peers of your skip be aware of what you're contributing, because when they get in a room and decide who to give the new prizes to, who to reallocate the organization to, this is half of it. Now, what's the other half? The other half is something I call the magic loop. And there's a link at the bottom of this. You can write it down. It's from Lenny's newsletter. Lenny Rashitsky has got the largest newsletter, we think, on Substack, about 500,000 subscribers. And Jason and I did an elaborate guest post explaining this idea of the magic loop. I'm going to take you through it quickly, verbally. And it's these 3 pictures starting on the left. So the magic loop essentially says, look, here's how you grow in any job. 5 steps. Number 1, you have to do your current job well. Well, okay, all of you probably think, yes, I do that, but have you asked? Have you talked to your manager and said, hey, am I doing a great job? And if I'm not, what are my gaps? If I am, what can I double down on? But here's the key. I'll turn it around so you understand. Many of you are managers today. When's the only time you normally don't like it? If someone comes to you and says, hey, what else could I do to help you? How could I help you? Where could I do more? And you're like, the place you get that negative reaction is where you need to tell them, well, actually, it would just help if you did what you're doing well. You're falling short here, you're falling short there. You can't grow until you're thought of as doing your current responsibilities well. It doesn't mean you've got to be the best on earth, but you have to be solid. Once you've got that, then it's a simple loop. Go ask your manager how you can help. I've talked to thousands of managers being asked, hey, what could I do to help you? What could I do to help our group? What could I step up and do or take on that would help our organization? Is rare. Think about it yourself if you're a manager. How often do your team members really come to you and say, look, I know it's a tough time. I know we've had some layoffs or whatever. I know you're under pressure. What could I do to help? What could I do to help our team succeed? Maybe a few of you, there's always one person who's like, my team asks me that every day, but it's very rare. Then you do what they ask. You help out. Step 4 is the critical piece. You then go back and you say, look, I would like to grow my career. I would like more scope, a bigger challenge to get to this level. What could I do that would align with my career and help you? And the psychology here is really straightforward. People help those who help them. You might say, well, that's not right. My boss should be invested in my career. Well, your manager has a lot to do. And the fact is, they pay more attention. There is a natural human psychology that people who are helping us, we work to help them back. So some people would say, well, Ethan, you just said like suck up or kiss up. No, I didn't. I said be helpful, be a contributor to your team, be an active contributor, and then ask them to contribute back to you by giving you a path to the next level. Now, speeding up because you can read the rest of this in this long newsletter and refer back to it. When you get good at this, you then change from asking to suggesting. You become proactive and say, hey, manager, I noticed we aren't doing this and I thought I could help. Or I noticed this project is unowned or this person needs to be mentored or whatever it is. I was thinking I could do that. How do you feel? And then on the right hand, the most mature is once you and your manager are aligned and they really trust you, you just inform them and say, hey, I saw this wasn't done, so I did it. Any feedback? I saw this needed to be done, so I'm taking care of it. And that's what managers love. When they have someone that they can trust to see what needs to be done and do it, it's magical. So then what happens? When someone else gets fired, leaves, or whatever, they either think, well, I can take a risk on hiring someone new, or I can give it to Ethan, who's already doing everything so well and helping me so much. And that becomes an easy choice because you're the known high performer and hiring someone externally is a risk, or internally, hiring someone external to my team, that's a risk. I'd rather give it to someone I trust. This is the recipe and you can go read it. It's all in this newsletter. So people ask me, we have just 1 or 2 more slides. People often ask me, hey, Ethan, it's hard times. Should I transfer to a safe team to avoid getting laid off? Should I go to something low risk, core to the business, etc.? Well, first thing I'll say is, what is safe? If you look around, plenty of things that might be thought of as safe have turned out to not be safe. So I'm not a huge fan of this, but I do understand that some people will consider, how can I get in the core business that's going to be valued and is definitely going to remain? So like search at Google, or, you know, who knows, iPhone at Apple. These are things that are not going away. However, can you even move? Are there spots on that team? Are there good spots? If there are, consider it. It's fine. What about the other direction? What about transferring to a risky new opportunity during these times? Well, I think you should ask, can you afford the risk? And what I mean by that is, hey, there's risk in these teams. They're going to be the future growth opportunities if they succeed. But what if the team gets shut down? What if you get laid off? Can you stand that? Can you tolerate economically and mentally if it goes wrong? If you can, always take more risk if you're up for it, because taking risk is how we stand out and make gains. But you got to be prepared. You've got to, be ready for the downside. The other thing to be aware of, if you transfer teams, whichever way you transfer, that usually resets trust building. So we talked about how trust is consistency over time. Well, if you change leaders, you're resetting the trust engine. That's fine. Just be aware of that cost, that you're going to have to re-earn that special status to some degree. And so the last bullet here says, get new scope up front. What that means is make sure you go, if you're being promised like, oh, come over to this team and we'll see about giving you an extra team, or come over here and there'll be a bigger opportunity in the future. Well, it's better always to get things settled up front to any degree you can. All right. So these are the specific ways to get trust. Now let's go through a few examples, just examples from my career. And it's 3 different categories. So the first one I call getting a Klingon promotion. When I began my career as a simple engineer, I got started into leadership because the product manager of the team above me was relieved of his duties. He wasn't fired, but they moved him aside and took me, someone who'd been at the company less than a year, equivalent to what you'd call an SDE 1, right? And gave me that leader's responsibilities. And I call it, if you know Star Trek, the Klingons, the way you got command of a ship was you killed the captain. So you took over by getting rid of the person in your way. Now, I didn't do anything to kill this guy or get him removed from his role, but why on earth did they give me the job? I was the person they trusted to do it, and he had lost that trust. Now, the specific reason in this case was I'm a thorny, pushy, loud, driven person, and he was a nice guy. Free tip, when I coach people and they pay me a lot of money, you would think I'd be really kind to them, but I actually often tell them, you're a very nice person, and that's not a compliment. And what I mean by that is not that people should be rude or mean, but that sometimes you have to be forceful and focused to get things done. You have to be driven, and you have to be willing to take risk and push others to step up. This gentleman was so nice that he wasn't willing to push a partner who was not delivering. He was willing to chat with them. He was willing to understand them. He was willing to kindly ask them, but he wasn't really willing to say, what you're doing isn't good enough for our company. As a brash 24-year-old or so, I guess I might have just turned 25, I was totally willing to just look people in the face and say, this isn't good enough. This product sucks. I was actually just kind of rude because I wasn't polished, but that was better than what they were getting, which was no pressure. So one real thing that launched me on my career and into first being basically a TPM and then being a manager in my mid-20s. The key point for you to take away is, how can you be the person who's selected when there's a need? How can you be the person that leadership comes to? Because they could have obviously hired externally. They could have said, who can we hire externally? My God, we can't give it to this, crazy kid. Who can we hire externally? But they didn't. They gave it to me, and then I made it happen. Okay, fast forward 20 years. Merch on demand is a story of starting a new business at Amazon. So this is part of this idea on this slide, start a new project, the middle bullet on the right-hand slide. So Merch on Demand is Amazon's t-shirt printing business. They also do some other things. But at this point, you'd be surprised to know perhaps that Amazon sells like $1 billion a year of custom printed t-shirts. And I helped start that business. Now, we had this idea, but I was running the Amazon App Store, and people said, gee, why is the App Store interested in printing t-shirts? That makes no sense. The key is, I didn't let that slow me down. I said, forget who's doing it for a minute. We should evaluate this on, is it a good idea and a good business, and can we succeed? Not, am I like, what do t-shirts have to do with apps? Now, we had some reasons to believe that it was a complementary business. Those reasons, as it turns out, were wrong. But I fought and used some of my headcount to prove out this business. And then it got launched into its own thing and started making money. And now it's, the last I knew, and this is old data, so I can talk about it because it's many years old, it was a hundreds of millions dollar business with a double-digit margin. So they were making a lot of money printing t-shirts. The key is, you can start ideas even in hard times, particularly if you're a leader. You have people on your team. Simple trick, you go find an eager engineer, someone who wants to step up, or someone else in your team, an eager product manager, and you get them to be enthusiastic about an idea and say, let's do this as a side project, as a skunk works, as a hackathon, and you prove it out, and then you go get it funded. Finally, the bottom story. Jobs nobody else wanted. You know what? If you want to grow, you're probably not going to be offered the juiciest things to go build. When your manager is giving out new opportunities, you have to consider taking them. So I did this many times where I jumped on projects that were offered because they gave me a chance to grow, whether or not they were things I was really excited about. So I worked on things like Amazon's business-to-business product, which at the time meant, how do we ship pallets of paper to schools for their printers? This is not super exciting, at least to me. Some people probably think it's over the moon exciting, but it didn't fit me. I worked on what's called reverse logistics, which is, how do you do returns? How do you do trade-in? We had a group that did video game trade-in. So I was in video games. Video games are cool. But how about trading in used consoles and, having that be a program, and trading in used games on DVD? Not my cup of tea, but these were things that were offered to me as, could you lead this? It's a problem for me. I need a leader. If you're trying to grow, you've got to be opportunistic. So, specific story from today. I have to obscure the details, but I was on a coaching call just prior here, and a leader talking to me told me that their boss had come to them and was offering them this new division as a way of helping them grow. And they were telling me in simple terms, I'm not sure I believe in the product. I'm not that excited about it. And I kind of said, well, that's fine. You can turn it down. But your manager is going out of their way to find a way for you to grow. You better think really carefully, does it matter if you care about the project? You're going to have to find a way to lead it well and to be passionate about it. But don't turn down a gift horse simply because it's not exactly what you'd like to do. That's not how it works, particularly in hard times. So that person, by the way, the group they're being offered is like 4 times to 6 times their current group. So it's an enormous opportunity, but it's also a project that arguably is a mess. Arguably is cleanup on aisle 5, as I call it, right? When you go into the grocery store and the kid has pulled down all the cans of tomato sauce, right? And they're hesitant to take on cleanup on aisle 5. Well, that's where you get your growth. So we're going to go to Q&A now. Obviously, many of you know this is taken from my larger course, Level Up Breaking Through to Executive, which Maven is hosting this because the course is on Maven. So we have this class. I built this class about how to become an executive, how to get out of middle management and get up. We have alumni from all these different companies who've been through it. They rated it 4.7 stars. It's being taught in like 3 weeks on December 9th and 10th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon US Pacific time. You can find it just at this link, maven.com/Ethan Evans, if you're interested. And really quickly, these are all the places you can find me. So follow me on LinkedIn. I have my own website, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read to you what you can see on your own. The QR code will get you most of these links. And then we'll go, I see some people have put stuff in the chat. Remember, the way we're going to do this is I'll answer any question I can. I'll answer them relatively briefly so we get through a bunch of interesting questions. Please vote on what you would like me to answer. And so with that, here's the question instructions, which you've already heard. I'm going to kill the screen share so I can look at you. So hopefully you've got all the information you need. There's everyone. Let me get chat back up on my screen.
Ethan, first question, most upvoted from Omer.
Okay.
When you do get more scope, how do you decide between taking it directly on your plate versus delegating it to managers on your team to increase their scope as well?
Well, are they ready? And by ready, I mean, evaluate it just like I gave you. Are they helping you? Are they a partner with you? Thing number one is same things that I just said you need to do. Have they earned that trust with you? Do you trust them to deliver? Do you trust them to do what they say or die trying? Have they shown willingness and ability to think independently? Or are they just griping? Are they just the people, why don't I'm ready, blah, 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 why don't? Are they a part of a positive process or are they just complaining? The second thing is, how critical is the initiative? So on the one hand, there's, do you trust these people? And then the other question is, what kind of shape is this thing in? Is this something they can handle that's a nice stretch challenge, or is this an ugly hairball? Is this something your boss is looking for a parking place for? Reverse logistics, things like video game trade-in, where they're just saying, take this off my plate so I don't have to worry about it. You can take more risk. Or is this something you're being asked is critical? In other words, hey, this is the new most important thing I need you to do, Ethan. Then I might be inclined to own it myself. In general, and I cover this a little bit elsewhere in my classes, I always try to delegate because you have so much on your plate. If your only freedom and sanity, your only work-life balance is going to be by growing your team to where they can do their jobs well and do most of what you think you need to do. The only way as a large-scale leader you ever get any sleep is if you have really capable leaders under you. So we're off topic a little bit, but to be a really successful leader, it is important that you relentlessly stretch and grow and motivate and train the people under you so that they can carry all the weight themselves, so that they can basically do everything that's needed, and it leaves you free to work on strategic problems. So if you want the path to being a big executive, you have to invest in others as much as you can, but you may have to give them guardrails or help along the way in the beginning. So that's a two-sided answer, but that's how I think about it. What else you got for me, Jason?
All right, next question is from Vignesh. The question is, how do I get an accurate, honest assessment on where I stand in the eyes of the org's leadership?
So we have a whole segment on that I laugh because we have a whole segment in the class. So I will absolutely answer your question, but if you want more depth, you come to the class. First, ask your manager. If you haven't had that discussion, you have to sit down with them. Now, how do you ask effectively? You tell your manager, hey, I want to get some feedback from you. So I'm sending you an email or I'm sending you a Slack message. I'm telling you up front that in our next one-on-one, I'm going to be looking for feedback because I want to be a top performer and I want to know both what I do well and what are my gaps. Now, why do you do it in advance? Because nobody likes to be put on the spot. Even though I coach people all the time, and obviously it's my profession, I'm sitting here doing it right now, it's much easier to give you real feedback if I've thought about it and had a little bit of time to even just jot down on a Post-it, here's 3 things you do well, 3 things you could work on. Second, people tell me they have managers who say, oh, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing. You may need to push them a little bit and say, look, I really appreciate that, but understand it's not actually good enough. I need you to do a little more than just tell me it's great. I need you to step up to the managerial and leadership bar and give me actionable feedback. Now, some managers will still not do that. It's not in their nature. Hopefully some will. If they don't, or if you want more feedback, nothing is stopping you from doing your own 360. Nothing is stopping you from having coffee or beer or reaching out to any number of your manager's peers, the stakeholders that you may work with in other functions, your own peers, your own direct reports, your critical direct reports, and saying, look, I want to be the best leader I can be. Could you take a few minutes to give me a couple thoughts about what I do well and a couple thoughts about where I could improve? And you may need to tell them, I promise I'm open to the feedback. I'm not going to take it poorly. I didn't cover this, but the only appropriate response to feedback ever is first, thank you. And then if you disagree with it, this is critical. Understand, if you disagree with feedback, you still have something to work on. Number one, you better go ask yourself, is the feedback actually right? But number two, even if at the bottom of your heart and maybe with some external confirmation from others, you conclude this feedback is not right, you still have to realize that the problem you have is someone else believes it's right. So if someone says, whatever, Ethan, you're not organized enough. You're disorganized when you communicate about projects. I may think, well, I don't know, I've made my whole damn living organizing and shipping products, but I still have a problem because for some reason this person believes that. So all feedback tells you something. It either tells you a real problem or it tells you a perception problem. And you can ask a lot of people. You just have to convince them. A quick story, and I'll end with this, is, yeah, somebody here has said perception is reality when it comes to feedback in the chat. That's exactly right. If I perceive it, it's true to me. So you have the problem that even if it's not true to you, it's true to me. I had someone, when I was working at Twitch, I had a high-level peer. We were on an airplane together, I think. Sit down beside me and say, oh, Ethan, I'd love for you to give me some feedback. How am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. I gave her a piece of feedback and she immediately began to argue with me. No, that's not true. Blah, blah, blah. You misunderstand. Blah, blah. What did I think? Put yourself in my shoes. Be that person. You try and give someone some feedback they've asked for and they immediately tell you how wrong you are. I made 2 conclusions, both of which were very bad for her. Conclusion number 1, she doesn't get it. Conclusion number 2, she also doesn't take feedback well. So she actually managed to lower herself 2 notches in my estimation by first not listening. And second, showing that she didn't know how to take feedback. As a mature leader, she didn't even understand the feedback. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone. If you don't understand or you think you disagree, ask a question. Ask, can you give me an example? I'm not following you. Can you take me through an example of where you've seen that? Or if you don't have an example in mind right now, the next time you see it, could you point it out to me? Because I want to understand, but I'm not following you. That asking for clarification, honestly, totally legitimate. Just debating someone, that's not true. Only I never gave her feedback again, because why bother? Right? If you ask me for feedback and then you argue with me, I got better things to do. So if you argue, you just turn off the feedback faucet. Okay, so that was a great question. What else we got?
All right, next question is from Amet. The question is, after layoffs, I've gotten back to a team size 2 years of my team 2 years ago. I can't grow anymore. I think it's time to change companies, but there's not enough open positions. What should I do?
Well, I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You believe you're stuck. You believe you cannot grow, and you also believe that you cannot change. I wouldn't normally say the whole word on a big Zoom like this, but you're effed. You're effed because you put yourself in a box. So your first problem is your attitude. You're going to have to believe in something more. You're going to have to believe that you can either break out of the box you're in at your job, or that you can find a job. Now, I don't know your situation at your work. Maybe there isn't growth at your work, but I do know plenty of people are finding jobs externally. Is it harder? Absolutely. It's definitely harder. But I coach lots of people who've been laid off or who want to change jobs, and I have seen them get better jobs, not just equal jobs, better jobs. So I was coaching someone, I can't say where he's leaving, but he came to me and said, Ethan, I've secured 4 job offers. Let me see, was Google, Walmart, a startup, and something else. But he was in the situation. Oh, the last place ghosted him. So he had like 3.5 offers. So he was coming, by the way, again, I don't want to say too much, but he was coming from a company of no particular great reputation. It wasn't like he was leaving Apple, right? He was leaving a company that, let's just say, has been in the news for being mixed results. So it wasn't like he had this great platform. What did he do, though? He networked for the jobs. He was calling people he knew elsewhere and getting doors opened. Here's your tip, I guess, for the person who asked that. 80% of jobs at the leadership level go to someone who has at least some connection to the role. Someone on the team has recommended them in. They've networked in and gotten introduced to the manager. They've gotten introduced to the recruiter. 80, and this is, by the way, this is research from Forbes magazine. This is not just me making up numbers and saying, oh, it's about 80%. Forbes magazine earlier this year published this stat. Also, 80% of leadership jobs are never publicly published. They're filled internally, or they're secret, right? They're probably, all of you are mature enough in your careers to have run into the unposted opening. We're looking for someone, but it's confidential. It's a confidential backfill, is the Amazon language, other language at other companies. Why is there a confidential backfill? Well, they don't want to tell the team that many of you have either had someone hired in over you or seen people hired in over other managers. They never rush to tell anyone, oh, hey, we're looking for a new boss for you. Don't worry, we'll make a good choice, and we don't know when it'll be. So you're going to get a new boss, but it'll be, I don't know, sometime, and it'll be someone. We never do that, right? What we do instead is we hunt for the new person, and then when we have them, we come and tell you we've hired a new person and they're taking over. These things don't get published. So the only way you can get an unpublished job is by talking to people at other companies and reaching out through your network to find out where those jobs are. The bottom line I'm telling you is that applying through front door web portals for posted jobs gets 20% of jobs. It's a fool's game. Not saying it won't work or it can't work, but that is not the best use of your time. So
All
Jason,
right.
I think we're about at time. You tell me what's.
Yeah, we're at the 45-minute mark. But Ethan, are you good if we stay on for 15 more minutes?
Yeah, I was planning
Okay.
on staying till noon. So pick the next questions. I'd be happy to help out. I want to be respectful of all of you who came. We're at the 45-minute mark. I'm going to take several more questions with Jason, and I'm excited to. But if you need to go, I respect that. I hope to see you in class or at least on LinkedIn. What's the next question?
Next question is from Ivy Berry. The question is, Ethan, what is your suggestion on expanding scope in a flat environment when the manager disagrees with the skip on org-wide priorities?
It's a great question. I'm going to have you repeat it in a second. Because I want to take the one from Mitchell who said, is it a bad sign if there's an opening for your boss's position and you aren't told about it? Different people have different levels of secrecy. If you've earned trust with your skip and you're paying attention, you should know. So it's a little bit of a bad sign. But different people play cards very close to their vest or not. Sometimes I've been told and sometimes I haven't. Sometimes, here's the thing. You don't tell anyone that you think may freak out. If I think you're mature and you'll handle it in a helpful way and you'll be like, great, let me know how I can help. I'll hold the fort until they get here. I'll tell you. If I think you're going to be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should quit now. Like, what's going on? I won't tell you. So I will make selective decisions of who I tell based on how trusted they are. So now there's this question you ask about org-wide priorities.
Yes,
So if your
Ethan,
manager and your skip aren't aligned, that's always tough. What I would try and do, you may find that this is, you may be like, wow, really? I would try and align my manager and my skip. Like, it's your life that depends on it. It's your career. I would go ask my manager. I would go get data from each of them. In other words, what I would do is I would try and ask them, tell me what you really feel like. Tell me more about your priorities. Why do you believe this or that should be our priority? What's convincing you? And then I would ask the skip the same thing, and I would try to look for common ground. It's possible that the manager and the skip just really, truly disagree. It's also possible that they just are misaligned over something small that you can figure out, semantics, etc. In the end, the skip is probably going to drive the bus, right? They're the highest level leader. So I would not go around my manager or be seen as undermining my manager. But in this weird misaligned situation, I would assume that in the long term, the skip is going to make the decisions. So I would support my manager and work with my manager, but I would be keeping my eye on where is the opportunity going to come under the skip. So it's a hard situation, right? It's tricky when there's management chaos above you. One of my favorite quotes you'll hear a lot if you listen to me is, when the elephants fight, only the grass gets trampled. In that case, you're the grass, right? If the people above you are disagreeing and they're thundering back and forth about, like, your best thing is just stay out from under the hooves. Okay. Someone's got this post too about what's keeping you up at night. Tom posted that in chat. Absolutely. Ask your manager. When I said ask him how you can help, a classic phrasing of that is what's keeping you up at night that I can help you with? What are you worried about? What are your top concerns? Okay, next question.
All right, next question is from Alexis. It goes, Alexis has tried to volunteer for work, sometimes successful. Other opportunities feels like pulling teeth because the volunteer work is outside the scope of their team. How do you navigate that to progress your career, but also respect the scope of the org given tight timelines?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute, which is how do you get more opportunity when the opportunities you see are elsewhere? Again, this is partly relationship with your manager, building the relationship with your manager and your peers. Many of you, I'm guessing a lot of you are technical background. Many of you may be engineers or working in tech. We have this thing we do in tech that's really funny, which is we try to convince everyone that they should act like some like little microservice. Ethan's the microservice in this role, and we call on him to do this stuff, and we expect him to do this stuff and spit out the results and never get upset and never have emotion, and to be this perfect little sort of robotic automaton. We leave out all the relationship piece. The fact is, all of us are human, and whether we prize our logical sides or not, we bring our emotions to work. Where am I going with this touchy-feely stuff? Leadership roles are handed out partly on competency and partly on how I feel about you. And I may not even admit that to myself. Remember, I can always rationalize who I choose based on arguing that they're the best choice on pure competencies. But realistically, I'm making a choice in part based on how do I feel about you. So where that goes here is build the relationship with your manager as well as with your manager's peers and your stakeholders, because this work that's quote unquote out of scope, probably I have the discretion to either let you do it or not let you do it. Example, going back to my story where I ran the Amazon App Store, which is about putting apps on phones and tablets, and I wanted to build a t-shirt printing business. That's insane. It's as out of scope as you can possibly get. But I had earned the trust with my leaders where I said, look, I'm going to take a small portion of my team, and I think I can build a big business for Amazon here. It's a skunk works. Let me try. And they basically said, all right, you've got 800 people. You need 8 or 10 for this. We think it's wrong. We think you're shortchanging initiatives you should be working on in scope. But sure, go ahead. Relationship, trust. I pound away on those because, again, many of you are locked into this idea of, yeah, but I'm the best engineer. I'm the best product manager. I'm the smartest scientist. I'm the best ML engineer. I'm the best. I got best all day long, right? I got lots of people who are technically qualified or qualified in their positions, even if that's marketing, sales, legal. I don't want to exclude and only talk to technical people. I got lots of people who are talented. Then there's the people I trust, and trust goes beyond, are you good enough? It goes, how do we relate? Do I believe you have my back? Do I believe you'll come through when it's hard? Do I believe you're going to stay here or jump to the first offer that's $2 better at another company? Do we have a relationship? And I can, the higher the leader, the more they can do whatever the hell they want within reason, as long as it's not unethical, in allowing their teams. I was paid as a vice president to make Amazon profitable, to make money for the company. At the end of the day, as long as I do that, I have a lot of latitude how I do it, and I can let people do different jobs, different types of work. So that's a long story. What's the next question?
Next question is from Jason. It goes, you mentioned nice being as a potential hindrance. What can you do to encourage those who are deemed nice to become more unreasonable, especially when your role requires leading through ambiguity?
Okay, let's see. So, of course, I use this example because here I am telling people not to be nice. It sticks out in their head. What I really mean is having high standards and having the courage of your convictions and being willing to go through the work to influence people and be insistent. There's a book I love. It's called Rejection Proof. You can go read it. Easy to find on Amazon, on Audible, etc. The basic idea is those who ask for things get. And if you consider whatever, right? Let's take for a minute my class, the class I'm teaching that I'd love you all to join. Well, if I'm talking to one of you and you're like, yeah, but like I'm busy that weekend. Well, if I wanted to push you on it, I'd be like, well, the class is recorded, you can make up the things at night, but don't you want to advance your career? And you'd be like, yeah, but it's a lot of money. I'd be like, well, Okay, but how much is a promotion worth in what you do? Like, yeah, the class is $800. What are you going to get back if it gets you to promotion in what you do even 1 month earlier? What's your return on investment? I can go on and on. The point is, am I willing to push you through something? Now, you say that's too pushy. Okay, let's go the other way. If I was busy on this class and I really wanted one of you to take it, and I pull someone out that I'm watching, I have some of you here on my screen, and I love, for example, there's someone, Chris Adoretti, who's, I'm sure he's all wrapped up in a blanket now, right? He's waving, but he's like all nestled in. It's great. So if I wanted to convince Chris a different way I could do it, you don't have to do this, Chris. I'd be like, Chris, what is your hesitancy? Tell me honestly, what are you struggling with? Why, what's holding you back? And then I bring him in, and questions bring people in more. So the key here of how to not be nice is just it's okay not to take no for an answer. You don't have to stop being nice. You have to stop giving up. You have to understand that you have a goal and you need to be relentless towards that goal. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you questions to make sure I understand you. And then I'm going to start, for lack of a better word, arguing with you. Now I can argue nicely. I can say, have you considered? Have you thought about? Right? And then I can wait 2 days and come back, come back the next day and be like, oh, Chris, it's good to follow up with you. What are you thinking today? And will I ever convince Chris? Oh, he's nodding. You get somebody nodding. See, that's subconscious. Once they're saying yes, you get them saying more things. But you just keep pushing. So that isn't super specific advice in a way, but the point is the way to get things done is you do have to be somewhat relentless. Fun tip, by the way, if you didn't know this, if you go to relentless.com, there's probably a few people here who know what www.relentless.com goes to. Answer, it's Jeff Bezos' original name for Amazon. He wanted to build, and it still goes to amazon.com. He wanted to build a company that was going to be relentless in its pursuit of excellence. He was just smart enough to realize it wasn't very consumer friendly and didn't work great from PR sense. But that was his leadership philosophy, is I don't have to win everything, but I just never quit. That's how you get what you want. And the problem with the nice person is they say, oh, that's a good excuse. You're late on your sprint this week. Oh, you can't give me these people? You can't promote me right now? Okay. And then they never ask again. They take no for an answer. As long as you take no for an answer, you're a really easy person for me to manage. I tell you what to do, you do it. It's great. But you won't move up as fast as the person who's a pain in my ass. Now, hopefully I'm a little bit better at drawing that out and seeing who's good, but do you want to count on your boss discerning that? There is a reason there's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That saying is age old, and there's probably many other sayings in many other languages, but it's been true for time immemorial. And you have to be a little bit the squeaky wheel. It doesn't mean you have to become a jerk, but be comfortable with finding your inner unreasonableness. All right, let's go.
All right, Ethan, this will likely be the last question. You mentioned the class that we have coming up. So I thought this was, and this one got a lot of votes in the chat. How would you describe the differences between a senior manager and director? What are the key traits?
Absolutely. So the big difference is directors work across when I say across, I don't just mean they run a bigger organization. They're looking across the whole company, and their main focus, it's assumed that they can lead a large organization and get it to accomplish its goals. At the director level, your question is, how do I get my organization to do what the company needs? And so the big difference is you're looking up and out and trying to figure out how do I use my team as a resource to meet company goals? That is a perspective change, because it may mean that you actually sacrifice parts of your org's own desired roadmap for what's good for the larger company, because that's the right overall goal. Second, and we just don't expect that At the management level, we don't expect people to have the perspective. It's great if they do, and some of you may, but we don't expect people to have the perspective. Well, I may need to miss my goals to help this other org hit their goals, right? As a director, you may need to look at your list of goals and say, these goals are good, but actually as a part of this larger thing, I'm going to miss a bunch of them. And yes, I'm going to get yelled at for that, but it's still the right thing to do. The second thing then is figuring out what should the company's goals be? What business is like? I was a director. I was probably a VP at that point. But when I created this t-shirt business, I did it against opposition. Remember, this is important. No one told me, go figure out how to make a new business. No one told me, oh, you should go fight for, like, I could have easily done nothing. I had the option to not do anything. And no one would have ever known. I could have said, I've got a pretty good idea for t-shirts, but my job is App Store. I'm going to keep my focus on App Store, and I'm going to do everything that's on my roadmap for App Store. We expect leaders at that level to be thinking about not what is convenient or easy, but what is valuable. And we love that when people at all levels do it, whatever level you're in today, senior manager or manager. But at the director level, it's an expectation. And if you're not showing signs that you're thinking outside the box and creating unexpected value, maybe this is the simplest summary. Up into the director level, we expect you to do your job really well and create all the value we expect from you. At director and up, we expect you to create the unexpected. We expect you to surprise us with your innovation, with your insight, with your disruption. Because whatever, there were 190 senior managers, assuming you're all senior managers, which I know you are. There are 190 people here at the peak. If you're not doing it, I have 189 other candidates for that job. So if you're not showing me the potential that you're going to create unexpected value beyond just working hard, beyond just doing your job really well, I got other people. I have a whole line. And there's only so many spots. So that's the difference. All right. So with that, thank you all. It's noon on the West Coast. I'm sure it's quite late, 8 or 9 over in the different countries in Europe. And of course, I appreciate all of you being up and being here. I hope you've had a good time. Obviously, I hope to see you in the class, but whether I do or not, I hope to see you on LinkedIn and in our newsletter.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
And the video recording will be sent out. So look for it. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. See you later.